Did you
No.
feel any benefits with your physical performance, say running or doing sports?
Oh, well, that was the most benefit that I got from Buteyko. Learned about what was. It was kind of like a technique that sort of explained a lot of things that I couldn't find explanations for anywhere else.
I can certainly say that doing Buteyko as a family has been really helpful.
Well, she doesn't have asthma anymore.
Welcome, friends. Welcome again to the Learn Buteyko podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Emmanuel. Emmanuel's gonna be part of an interview that we did regarding Buteyko and teenage years. He started to do Buteyko when he was around 16 with great results, and we are also going to speak to his mom, who's also going to be talking about how it affected to the live family and how it served her to hear me say that a control pulse of less than 40 was unacceptable, and that motivated her very much. Emmanuel is a very thoughtful young man now, and he has very interesting perspective, not just for what Buteyko did for himself, but in general, why the Buteyko method works, why he thinks it's so important that other teenagers learn about it. And I really hope you enjoy this very interesting chapter with Emmanuel. Okay, first of all, Emmanuel, thank you so much for doing this. This podcast could potentially help a lot of people of your age group, yeah, and also families, because you've done it with your family, as I gather. And we are going to talk about your journey with the Buteyko method and what it has done for you. And let's just start the conversation and let's just jump into it straight away. How long have you been doing Buteyko? So how old are you now, and how long have you been doing it?
So I am 19 now, and I started when I was 16.
Okay.
So it's been, I think, a little over 3 years.
Sure. And
And
why did you do it? Why did you start doing it?
so actually, I started doing it because my sister started doing it. She'd started getting asthma-like symptoms, and we looked for techniques online or remedies to try and help her with it, and had come across a Buteyko teacher. But this Buteyko teacher was not one of yours. It was someone else who really didn't know how to teach, really. And so this teacher, she taught Lillian to do steps, the same as how we do them. But after the steps were completed and she had to stop holding her breath, she was told to try and recover in 3 breaths, which naturally were going to end up being really long breaths. So I think what happened is that she got a bit better at the start, and then she started getting worse. I think it was something like that.
Okay.
Because of what you guys call rebound. Close to the new year, I think she actually had to go to hospital because she had quite a severe asthma attack.
Really?
Yeah. And she was fine. You know, it wasn't, I don't think it was, actually, I don't know. I don't think she was in danger of dying or anything, but it was very strong. And she never had anything like that before. We think it might have been this faulty Buteyko teaching. I think my mum was friends with someone who knew you guys. And then you, a sort of emergency, like an emergency Zoom call or something, or like an emergency gathering or something to try and help Lillian and try and create a sort of project, a practice for her to try and get her out of this asthmatic phase that she was in.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So emergency, you mean not that the crisis was happening right there and then,
No, but
more
well,
it was happening during those days, yeah?
It was soon after, yeah.
That's very interesting, right? Because as you probably have seen, the Buteyko method is quite precise on all the stages of it. And if you just miss one thing and you do it incorrectly,
it can have consequences. Recovery is absolutely essential to do it correctly, and
Yeah.
it's all about repressing your urge to breathe. And if you start breathing deep after you do the poses, is completely counterproductive.
Yeah.
So you think that happened because of that, or was it just related but maybe not?
Well, we don't know, but we think it definitely was possibly related to that, just because of you talked a lot about the Buteyko team talks a lot about rebound, which would actually make things worse. So if you practice incorrectly, where if you sort of would do Buteyko, but then would breathe really heavily afterwards or something like that, either
Yeah.
because you weren't doing it right or because I guess you just had bad breathing afterwards. So we think that it is quite possible that, you know, Lillian was my sister, she was getting, I guess, steadily worse, but she'd never had any proper big asthma attack until
Yeah.
after she was being taught by this first teacher who wasn't
Right.
good, you know.
So she noticed a significant change after she did it the right way, right?
Well, she doesn't have asthma anymore because I think, yeah, because of it. Yeah. So at the start, I think it was quite difficult because she had to do a lot of practice, but I don't know how long it took, maybe a month or 2 months or something. I mean, she never had another asthma attack like the one she'd had after this first teacher.
I
So
mean,
that was really,
this tells you a lot, really, right? So is your sister older than you or younger?
she's 3 years younger. She's 16 right now.
Oh, 3 years younger. Okay.
Yeah. So she was 13 when this happened.
Okay. Well,
So
now we know. Excellent.
yeah, and that inspired me. So it was interesting for me actually because when the Buteyko team, your Buteyko team, started helping my sister, and you know we obviously knew about it. I obviously knew about it. I kind of was just drawn to the technique because it answered a lot of questions that I sort of was asking in my head a lot of the time, but had never been answered before, such as why certain illnesses appear and why they disappear. And I didn't never really, you know, like for instance, you know, on the extreme example, why cancer, how cancer works. Because from my perspective, some people just seem to suddenly have something, right, when before they didn't. And I was just, you know, I had this thought in my head of, you know, why would that happen? And I didn't get an answer until I learned about this technique, which seemed to answer pretty much everything in a way that made sense to me. And so I wanted to try the technique because, well, I had a bit of acne at the time, which actually the Buteyko helped. And I also had, and I still have it actually, but it's very mild now. There's this skin condition that you normally get on your head. It's got a very nasty name. I don't like the name because it puts everyone off. It's called ringworm, and it's only called that because when it's very bad, it's a fungal thing. So that makes it sound even worse, obviously.
Yeah.
And when it's very bad, apparently it makes these sort of rings, these sort of red rings on your head, on your scalp. And I got that when I was 7. So that's been with, I've had that for a very long time.
So
And
you had that that started when you were 7, and
yeah,
you still had it when you started doing Buteyko?
yeah. And I still have it, but it's much milder than it used to be. If I had been able to do Buteyko, to carry on doing Buteyko for longer, then I probably would have got rid of it. But I imagine, but you know, even that now makes sense to me why it's not completely gone, because I got it so young. So it's something that would take longer to get rid of. First, if I was to do, if when I do Buteyko, first I would be cured of all these symptoms that are less sort of ingrained. Yeah. So right now I'm not doing very much Buteyko, mainly because I actually just find it mentally quite difficult, and that just seems to have been something that struggled with a bit throughout quite a lot of it. I think it's just because of the way my mind works. At the start, I think it was quite easy. And then there was a point where I started getting very sort of stressed about doing the practice, even though when I did do the practice, then I almost instantly felt better. But just the starting of it was very difficult. Sometimes I would find it so difficult to start that I'd even be waiting I don't know, half an hour before I could be able to get myself to do it.
Yeah, I would say that this is typical. This is normal. I mean, with teenagers, what happens is like the results are very quick, so you get results very quickly. You feel much better. Like, I mean, if you don't have anything big, in less than a month, you just feel great. So starting the practice is a bit of a drag, yeah. And this is normal, like, you know, on and off. So what's something that could help you, you know, if you want to restart, which I think you could benefit a lot from, is just to simply do this. You see? So in your mind, it's like this big thing that you have to start doing again, yeah? But in actuality, in order to just gain a little bit of momentum, all you have to do is to pinch your nose. And you know that you can do whatever. What are you going to do in your first pose? And it's not demanding. No one's demanding to you to do a first long maximum pose. You can do just a control pose to see where it is. And then maybe from there you take it on. It's like, okay, I'm going to do another one. And then you start feeling better. You start feeling like it gives you life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have like these big thoughts. You just simply pinch your nose. That's it. And you can do it multiple times a day. And you don't have to do the full practice. You can do one pose here, one pose there, one pose there. A full practice in the morning, maybe. You know, it's be flexible with it because you already know how it works.
Yeah, true. One interesting thing that I found is that I always feel like doing Buteyko, a Buteyko practice when I'm in the shower.
Okay.
But then very soon after I get out, I don't feel like doing it anymore. So it's never useful.
I see. Okay. Do you drive?
Yeah, I drive.
Could you make a commitment to do poses when you drive?
Would I be able to do that?
It's not
drive and do...
Oh yeah. It's okay. I mean, don't do it when you're in a lot of traffic or there's an intersection that is kind of difficult. But in normal driving, a driving bit that you know very well, definitely you can do it. Or if there's traffic light that you know you always have to stop there for a while, you can do it there, you know.
True.
If you know that you are going to stay for 2 minutes, you do a 2-minute maximum pause.
That's a very long red light.
So, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I understand. I actually think I did do that once when I was driving, because I started to notice when I started to learn driving, I realized I was breathing very heavily during it just because I was nervous.
Yes.
And obviously, if you hold your breath, you can't breathe at all. So that was a sort of quite an easy way to just check how much I was breathing.
Also, driving is the perfect place to do shallow breathing.
Right.
You can do very shallow breathing while you're driving. And if you connect the driving to the practice, then you gain that.
That's true. Yeah.
The same way as you do with the shower, right? With the shower, it doesn't work because it's just a shower. You do one pose, it doesn't take you anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It could be dry, it could be anything, right? So you have to use your own schedule and see how you can reapply it. Also, it's very useful to do follow-ups.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we're not on this now. Did you
No.
feel any benefits with your physical performance, say running or doing sports?
Oh, well, that was the most benefit that I got from Buteyko. I don't do it anymore, but I used to go to a football class. I remember before I knew anything about Buteyko, I enjoyed football a lot. I really wanted to play well during the games. So I would sort of try to be in all the positions at once, attacking and defending and everything in between. Especially if my teammates were sort of not defending, which can happen quite a lot, where everyone attacks and then you have no one's defending.
Yes.
I found that quite annoying, so I would try and do both.
Right.
And I got really, really, really tired from doing that, so much that when the session had ended, I would just kind of have to sit on a bench for about half an hour just to feel good enough to start walking back to the tube station. And as soon as I found out from Buteyko that you're supposed to breathe through your nose when you're doing everything pretty much, tried really hard to do that.
Was it
And
difficult at the beginning?
So the first time I did it, it was extremely difficult.
Yes.
And I couldn't run around as much. I just had to stop a lot sooner. I don't remember exactly though, but I think I didn't have to recover as much at the end. And then I remember that the second time I did it, it was much easier compared to the first time.
Right. Already the second time.
I think probably because I pushed myself so hard the first time, and this was just because I kind of wanted to do it the right way. But I think I must have pushed myself very hard the first time, and that ended up working out for me. And so the second time was much easier. And then I started finding that as I played football, I would, run around and start getting tired. And then I could just stop and wait about maybe 20 seconds or something, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. And then I kind of could just start playing again as if I'd not been tired at all.
Yes. So the recovery was much better already from the first day, even if it was very difficult at the beginning.
Yes, yes.
What would you say now to someone who hypothetically might suggest to you that you should come back to mouth breathing while playing football?
Probably not much, because I doubt that I would be able to change their mind about it.
Sure. I guess what I mean is, like, what does the idea of coming back to mouth breathing while playing football, how does that play in your mind? Is it outrageous? Is it possible? Is it okay? Because I just tell you why I'm asking you. It's because before starting breathing through my nose while doing CrossFit, the idea of doing CrossFit breathing through my nose only was crazy. Yeah. But now the idea of doing it breathing through my mouth is crazy.
Yeah.
You see? So that's why I'm asking you that. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with that. It just seems so obviously worse to breathe through your mouth now. And there would be no reason for me. I wouldn't see any point.
Yeah. You have come to also to understand why that is so, and in fact your oxygenation is actually much better, which is you're looking for efficiency in that regard. I find very interesting that we started the conversation, and I wanted to point out to the fact that you started talking about other people, not about yourself, and that your interest comes from wanting to understand, on having an interest on how illnesses work in general for other people, not just for yourself. Do you have any kind of vocational tendency towards medicine or helping others?
I was sort of maybe interested or a bit confused as to why some people got some illnesses or other problems, like my sister with asthma.
Sure.
I think like with when I have this scalp condition.
Yes.
Um,
This mild scalp condition with a
yeah,
horrible
well,
name. Yeah.
that was interesting because for most people, I think for everyone else that I knew, I think I knew a few other people who had had it at some point, but they got rid of it, like in a few weeks or a month or something, just by treating it with an oil or something like that.
Okay.
But for me, that just didn't work. So, and I think it was things like that also I would wonder why some other people had such serious reactions to certain things. Like I've never had asthma or allergies at all in my life. But some people have really big problems with asthma or allergies or both.
Absolutely.
I think I just kind of really wanted to try and find out why all of this was happening.
Yes, that's very interesting.
And because there's a bit, if there's a bit. Hi, Martha. There was a bit of me that sort of, you want to know how it works so that you can solve it.
Yes.
Very
good. That's the right approach. You want to get to the root cause and take it from there, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Did you notice anything in terms of social dynamics with your friends, with your group in school? Have you noticed anything in that regard?
Well, what do you mean by that? You mean, have I
mean, there's a lot of teenagers, which I don't know if it's your case, right? But there's a lot of teenagers, they struggle with relationships within their groups, yeah? Teenagers normally they want to integrate, they want to fit in the group, yeah? And they also targeted to think and feel in certain ways, yeah? So we have found with the work of Buteyko that some teenagers, they sort of awaken their own personality and they don't have much anxiety around their colleagues or their friends or in school, yeah? And I wonder if you have noticed anything in that regard.
I think for me, it's not happened as much as it might have happened to. I think there hasn't been as much of a change for me. Okay. So I've never been to school. I was home educated.
I see. Okay.
I was home educated all my life, and I think generally the home educated people, the children are generally more relaxed, from what I know.
Interesting.
And slightly less interested in trends as well. I think a lot of home educated people a lot of the children used to go to school and then had a bad time. So then they were taken out and then became home educated.
I see. Is this something that you actually have seen, like in the comparison of that with other kids?
Well, I've seen the way, a good number of school children can act. And typically home educated children don't act that way at all. So sort of being like a troublemaker, if you like. I could probably describe it better if I thought for long enough, but it's sort of something like that the children I was with when I was growing up were just generally really sensible.
Sure.
And
Good.
you know,
That's good.
if you got anyone who was sort of a bit disruptive, then it was normally just one person.
Can I just interject? Because one of the things is
Of
that
course.
we find is that teenagers can feel self-conscious or that they want to be liked,
Yeah.
and that's exacerbated at school.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if that was true. For me, I don't think that's been as much of a problem as for a lot of other people my age. I think for my sister that it might be a little bit different because she might know more because she's friends with a lot of people with a lot of people who've had a lot of stresses, I think, from school. And for me, I'm friends with mostly with people who aren't really involved in school at all.
Did you notice any effects on your level of concentration for studying, for example, or other activities?
Well, when I started doing Buteyko, I was told by my mum that I had sort of started to look happier most of the time
Mm-hmm.
compared to before. Actually, when I had been 15, when I was 15, I'd have moments of feeling quite down, quite sad, and sort of stressed. And when I started doing Buteyko, that got better quite quickly. Although I think it sort of came back after when I at a certain point, and also at the same time made it feel harder to do the pauses and stuff like that. But now it's fine. Now it's fine. What else?
I can see in your face, you're a lot less troubled. Like there's a clarity there. There's a natural, it's just very easy to look at you because there's not some sort of head thing going on. Whereas when I first met you, there was a sort of unsureness. It's not there anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think being a bit older helps.
That's true.
It was a bit weird at 15 and 16.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's normal. I mean, those years are, you're searching and there's a lot of ups and downs, and at the same time you have a lot of energy, but you described, you get tired easily also when you exert yourself. You don't have a reference of how you're functioning, so it does make sense.
Can I just ask you about your scalp? Is that better?
It's a lot. It's very mild, but it's not got better. But I think I haven't been doing serious practice recently, just mainly because I find it difficult with my mental state. But as I was talking to Javier about it, yeah, it might be time for me to do a follow-up maybe, because it would be nice to get rid of this scalp thing.
Oh, well, I just wondered, but is it better than it was?
When I started doing Buteyko, it did start getting better. And I think it got better up to a point. I think it just got better until I stopped doing Buteyko as much as I'd been doing it before. Mm. And then just kind of stayed at that point. Okay. But it hasn't got worse, which is good.
Well, that's one of the main things, is that when people practice, they stop the disease, they get improvement. And as you put it, that the disease doesn't get worse. It actually stops the progression. And that's one of the first things that we should be glad to have, is that the disease progression is slowed down. It's stopped.
Yeah. for me, because I had this so young. I don't know if you know, but I got this at 7 when I was 7 years old. I imagine it could take quite a long time to go, even if I did do a lot of practice. Although, maybe it would be quick. Yeah, but it's hard to know.
Well, sure. And the thing is that we can't actually say when the method's going to deal with particular symptoms that we've got. It has its own order of priority. And the skin will be treated when it's treated.
Well, it will probably fix my cold feet first, because I get cold feet.
That's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Vladimir would tell you to put your feet in hot water and wrap them up in woolen socks.
Well, doesn't that just work to keep them warm in the moment? Does that help long term?
Well, he says it's very important to keep them warm. So
Right.
you must keep them warm.
Right.
He probably means that the method will keep them warm, but in the meantime, it's important to keep them warm by any means. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason being is there's a direct connection between cold feet and your nasal passages.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I had heard that there was a lot of connection with your feet and like your body posture and stuff like that. But I wasn't really sure how deep it went.
Yeah, well, he said that it affects the breathing, so it's important that you keep them warm.
If you want to experiment with that, I have experimented with standing, for example, while studying or, using my computer. I change from sitting and standing. I don't sit all the time. It's uncomfortable.
Okay.
And
That's interesting.
since you said that, it might be something that could help. Because obviously when you're standing, you need a bit more energy. You're not so passive. Yeah. So I'm curious about something, Emmanuel. So your whole family has done it, right?
Yes.
So did you see any changes in not just in their health individually, which of course it happened, and we have the testimonies in YouTube if people want to see it, but also as a whole, as a family dynamic, because we speak about this in some of the previous podcasts, and I think it could be interesting if you have something to say around that or if you noticed anything.
I think it let us sort of enjoy more time together, just generally. It was very helpful at the start to do the practices together.
You did them together?
Yeah, we did them at the same time a lot of the time, and it was nice to see each other sort of improve and stuff like that. It's hard for me to remember details because most of it happened sort of when I was about 16. That was kind of when we did the most. Maybe 17 as well. And that was when we made some pretty big changes.
So you found that you spent more time together, or did you find that just the quality time that you spent?
Yeah,
together?
I think it just we were just able to enjoy more time together instead of have some more difficult times.
Yes. So you kind of felt the energy that it generates.
Yeah, I think we just sort of worked a bit better as a family.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine if 4 people do the practice, they normally all 4 will feel better, and that sort of heightens the state.
Yeah.
You kind of probably feel it in the room, right?
Yes, I think so. I imagine my parents would probably be better at remembering all of that.
Yeah, and they were probably paying a lot of attention the changes. that were happening with
Probably
you.
more attention than me, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you do pay attention because you have deep questions that don't pertain just to you.
Yeah.
Right? So you do project towards what's happening in general, and that triggers your action, not just your problems, but the problems of others. I found that very interesting.
Mhm.
That's why I asked you if you might be vocationally inclined to what are you planning to study, or what's your project or your idea of the future?
I have to go about this in a slightly strange way. I'm very interested in strategy. You know, for instance, I like playing video games because I like the strategy in them. And so I'm also interested in how to best do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes how to sort of treat problems best as well.
Yes.
If people are getting ill and I don't understand why, then I kind of just really want to I'd like to try and find out just to know what to do in that situation.
Okay.
Obviously, if I could help other people, that would be great. With a technique like Buteyko, though, it's quite actually. Well, actually, I have talked about it to a few of my friends, and some of them do seem quite interested, actually. And there's a family that we know whose children we taught some sort of basic Buteyko to.
Nice.
And they liked that. So I have actually showed other people or talked to other people a little bit, but generally, you know, it's such a strange technique compared to what people are used to most of the time.
Yeah. So how does your desire to solve problems connect with the work that you're looking for? I find it very interesting, actually. You're not choosing the typical path, and yet you have very specific interest on how things work. How does the care of children connect with the problems that you want to solve? How does that connect in your mind?
I don't think the problem solving connects with the care with children. Those are just two things that I really enjoy.
Okay.
But the problem solving connects to wanting to understand why illnesses appear and why they disappear sometimes, and sometimes they don't.
How are you going to go about solving those problems?
Well, you know, when I found out about Buteyko,
Right.
then it was kind of like Buteyko. When I learned about what it was, it was kind of like a technique that sort of explained a lot of things that I couldn't find explanations for anywhere else.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And also shows you ways of how to solve them.
Yeah.
In ways that made sense to me, where in other, I think a lot of the time with sort of normal ways of treating things, the situation would be you have an illness or something and you take medication to solve it, for instance. And the problem with that is that I just didn't understand. It's hard to understand exactly how, you know, how that works. Obviously, you know, it can help, but then sometimes, you know, the problem comes back. I think the people seem to need so much medicating, and I didn't really understand it. I sort of had this idea that for many things, many problems that you got, your body was clever enough to solve those problems for you without you having to do very much. So, you know, when you hear of people getting these very serious illnesses and then and not being able to just get better from them, and sometimes, you know, getting chronic conditions especially, then for me, I started really I started wondering why they, you know, what was the cause of
Yes.
all of that. And typically the sort of normal, the standard way of dealing with chronic conditions, let's say, is you just sort of keep treating it until it goes away, and then if it comes back you just have to treat it again.
Mm-hmm.
but surely there would be a way to get rid of it and then have it not come back, you know.
Yes, absolutely. That's the right question to ask. So you want to get to the root cause of it.
Yeah.
And you want to connect the dots also, which is something that in your thinking, that comes from your thinking, you should never abandon. Yeah. Even if someone who's an expert or anything like that tries to ever convince you that that's not the way your mind should work, your mind works in the right way because it wants to get to the truth of the matter and solve it from the root.
Yeah.
And what you're describing is precisely there's two things that are very important about what you're saying, and you're thinking in the right direction. And it's that most medicine, what they think is that the body is stupid and therefore we have to change it with our chemicals, and we have to forget about the wisdom that the body already possesses, and we have to fix it. Yeah. So when we go to the cause, we realize that only the body can heal itself, and it just needs the right components and the right environment, the right terrain for it. Yeah. And then you were asking something very interesting as to why, you get all these medicines, then they solve the problem, but the problem comes back, and then you get more medicine. This is a dynamic also that has to be seen not just from the purely medical perspective, but also from the human perspective. One of the things that are missing in our thinking about science is the science is made by human beings, and those human dynamics, which include economics and politics and all kinds of stuff, are very important to integrate in the explanations about why certain things are like that, because sometimes they have nothing to do with medicine or wanting to cure people. Yeah. So in this regard, you have the interest for the human aspect of it, which is great. You want to go to the cause. You want to actually really solve the problem and connect the dots. Yeah, and take it from different perspectives, which is not purely physiological. So most of the things that exist are not there to get to the root cause of something to solve the problem. They're actually there to sustain that problem, so that certain dynamics that have nothing to do with it are stable.
Yeah.
I find your mind is interesting. You know how to think. Yeah, from what I've seen, it's natural to you. It's natural. You see, you need a lot of investment in order to break that, because it's the natural way of thinking. It's like, okay, why is this happening? What is the cause? I want to know because I want to solve this problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only logical, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I think I was sort of prepared to go, carry on living without knowing the answers to these problems, because I didn't think that I would be able to find the answers, because no one seemed to know,
right?
Why people get these chronic conditions, and no one seemed to know, how to get rid of them so they wouldn't come back, until I found out about the Buteyko technique. And then it just seemed to really make sense to me, because the Buteyko technique was saying that sort of all of these different problems that different people get they're all down to just you not being as healthy as you could be. And I could find so many situations that proved that. Because you sort of look at unhealthy people and you see that their breathing is worse, and that's already quite an obvious sign for me. I think there was a lot of so before I knew about Buteyko, there was a lot of if people didn't know why someone got a certain condition, then they might put it down to like genetics, which kind of seems like the only answer left. When you can't think of anything else.
Yes.
Um,
Well, there's been a lot of that, right?
yeah,
And
and it
Buteyko kind
just
of,
yeah.
yeah, please continue.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that, you know, there would be some people who could be extremely unhealthy, and then and it just didn't seem to make sense that all of that would just be down to genetics.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that, and the next step out of that is epigenetics. Yeah, and
I
but
don't know
also
what that
the
is.
epigenetics. So when you have an explanation from the point of view of genetics about the illnesses that people have,
Hmm.
there is this aspect called epigenetics in which, depending on the environment, yeah, it can be external environment, it could be also internal environment of what you produce in your own body, the own dynamics that you trigger in your own body because of how you take care of yourself, that even if there is a potentially health problem that comes from your genetics, a predisposition,
Yeah,
that will not be triggered if the environment is kept correctly.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I've come to understand,
yeah,
and that makes sense because before it seemed like you could try as much as possible to get rid of these to get rid of certain symptoms, but if you had certain genes, then they would just be there. You would just have them sort of forever.
yeah.
And
It's deterministic, right? And
yeah,
it doesn't work
and
like that.
you know, to me, it makes much more sense that your body, you know, can have problems, but only if only if things actually aren't all right uh, in terms of health, in terms of Buteyko practice.
Yeah, it was related to genetics. I mean, what the Buteyko method does, it actually recognizes genetics, so obviously, as a possible trigger. Is like the symptoms that you get depend on how you're genetically predisposed. Yeah, but they happen for a reason. Yeah,
Yeah,
and of course the main cause is hyperventilation. So
yeah,
so
and
when that happens, your body triggers certain signals, but it's not that your body has gone haywire. It's actually your body is actually trying to protect itself. Yeah,
the idea that I think most people have is that because of your genetics, you just have certain problems that you can't get rid of.
yeah. Well, that's possible, certainly.
Yeah, but generally doesn't seem to be true.
It's not deterministic. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So, are there any closing remarks that you would like to do, or something that maybe you haven't mentioned?
I was thinking a lot about sleep. I think it's been the most difficult thing for me,
Okay. Why?
which is sleep, because I breathe very heavily in my sleep and I have extremely deep sleeps.
Hmm.
Um, so there have literally been earthquakes in the night and I don't wake up.
Wow.
And it's woken everyone else up, but not me.
Yes.
Um, a sort of ongoing difficulty that I have, which is trying to lighten my sleep, because I do feel it quite a lot when I wake up in the mornings. I tend to feel quite tired and find it quite difficult to get up at first. Um, I actually have noticed that if I do a breath hold as I'm lying in bed, I get the energy sort of almost, I get the energy very, very quickly, and then I can just get out immediately. But sometimes I'm too tired to even remember to do that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to sort of create a slope to sleep on so I don't have to breathe so much. And that has helped some of the time, but it's hard to do it exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. It will be easier if you retake the practice during the day
Mm-hmm.
and you set yourself up for a good night. And then then it will be easier then to practice after, say, 3 hours of sleep, for example, and put the alarm and you do the practice and then you sleep again.
Yeah. Well, actually, one problem I had is that I don't always wake up to alarms.
Oh, I see. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so
Earthquakes don't wake you up, so never mind
exactly.
alarms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
So at one point I remember I was trying to figure out sort of the most time I could sleep while still being able to wake up to my alarm. And it's quite difficult. I think what happens is that I sort of, when I go to sleep, I very, very quickly get into a deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I might be able to get into a deep sleep within an hour or something like that.
Right. Do you dream a lot?
I do dream, but I don't remember them very clearly.
So you remember that you dreamed, but you don't remember the dream.
Yeah, I sort of remember that I had a dream, but I can't remember the details of it.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's a function of how you're starting to do the practice during the day, and then start adopting. How interesting, isn't it? Like most people will tell you, "Oh, you sleep deep. That's very, very good."
Yeah, yeah, that was very strange.
What do you make of that?
Yeah. And it was also very strange to learn that actually you can end up sleeping less when your Buteyko levels get very high.
Definitely.
I don't really understand that completely.
The body does.
Yes.
Very obvious to the body, and it has a connection also with food.
Yeah, I noticed when I started doing Buteyko that I didn't need to eat as much as I used to before. And I found that quite interesting. I also connected that with, I noticed this might be a slightly strange subject, but I sort of seen situations where parents would encourage their children to finish their meals and the children wouldn't want to. And I know that sometimes, you know, children can be really distracted by other things and they actually are hungry. But I noticed some situations where the children wouldn't be distracted at all, and they would keep sort of saying that they weren't hungry. And I was starting to wonder if maybe the child was just right and that the children don't need to eat as much because they're generally healthier.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, very interesting, Emmanuel. It's been really a great pleasure to meet you and to talk to you.
Thanks, and you too.
And I hope to see you soon around, you know, the Learn Buteyko sessions, or maybe we'll do another podcast another day, you know, to see on your progress or whatever comes up, yeah?
Can my mum say a quick hello?
Oh, absolutely, of course. Hello.
Hello there.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Javier, nice to meet you.
Say a quick hello because I watched a video that you did a number of years ago.
Yes.
Which was on Martha's YouTube channel.
Yes.
And I was quite struck by, it was a series of little clips and I watched them all. I was struck by one where you said, I don't know how people can function with a control pulse below 40. And Martha was saying, well, some people have a control pulse of 15.
Yes.
And you kind of went like, how can they live like that? It was something like that anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, at the time I had a control pulse of about 15.
Yeah, and it was probably improving, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe by the time I watched the video, it was about 25 or something, but you can definitely function with a control pulse of 15. But it was very interesting to see your reaction, which was, I remember you saying, I don't know how anybody can function below 40. And I thought, right, that's it. I'm going for 40.
Good.
So you don't realize this, but you have motivated me. Yeah, so that was very, very motivating. And I thought, right, that's it. From now on, life is going to be at 40.
Beautiful. That's great. I wouldn't have thought that, right? That could have an effect on somebody's mind. I was just genuinely, did I say 40 actually?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. because at that time I was still not even thinking of becoming a practitioner. It was just a testimony in terms of what my experience was. Yeah.
Right.
So Martha was kind of like quoting, yeah, what the general trend was. I wasn't aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had seen other people, but I was mostly focused on my practice. Yeah. And my experience is like when my control pose goes below 30, I just don't feel right.
Right.
So when she told me like, well, most people have 15, I was really like, wow, this is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually that's what's happening. It, of course, now I understand. Yeah. Because I've seen many cases by now. Right. But yes, at that time, I kind of make an association of how I feel when I'm less than 30, and it's not good. So I assume that people, so Martha then described to me that people have coping mechanisms. Yeah. But I think it's also true. You probably would agree that once you reach 40, like going back to 15 is not even a question. Like you want.
There's no way I would want to go back to 15. Having said that, there have been some days where I think this feels like being at 15. Maybe if I'm cleansing, where I'm just tired, I haven't slept well,
Sure.
and maybe because I'm older and I'm in my 50s, so I've had a lifetime of not being at, not having good breathing habits, and I'm only just turning it around these last few years.
Sure.
So there are times when I feel quite leaden still, and then I remember that was not unusual. But certainly it's enabled me to be much more active, hasn't it, Emmanuel? Well, Emmanuel will have noticed the change in me.
Yeah, you don't get tired as often.
No, I go out more. I go for walks much more readily. I have a sense of zipping up to the park. It's a little bit of an incline. Normally I'd be, it'd be an effort, and I kind of, that's it.
Yeah.
Javier asked me a question about how we sort of worked as a family, and if it improved after doing Buteyko, and
I can certainly say that doing Buteyko as a family has been really helpful.
Yes.
And I've been able to progress because I know that I'm setting a model.
I think you've improved the most out of all of us.
Yeah,
haven't you? Yeah,
probably.
Beautiful.
Because I know that I can't mess it up. Like I'm showing my children, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
responsible
serious,
for a family. It's serious, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
not going to mess. It's also for me. But if I was living on my own, I might not have the discipline.
Yeah.
But and also because I'm busy with family life. So that saying, ask a busy person and the job will get done. Don't ask someone who's got too much time.
Yes.
It's like when you've only got this much time for yourself, and there's got to be a lineup of things to do. You get organized and you think, right, these are my priorities, off I go.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
I love that.
being
Yeah.
part of the family has been really helpful.
Yeah.
We've nagged. Emmanuel's been, oh God, he notices everything. Like he says, Mum, your tongue is low. Or that's not Buteyko, that's more functional therapy, where we've had a whole re-education of how we use our mouths, basically.
Yeah, what I noticed in Emmanuel, he's someone who cares. So he's not self-centered. He cares about what causes things and what causes them in others.
Yeah.
So he's interested in finding solutions for problems and for other people. That's what I gather. Okay, you, Emmanuel, you tell me if I'm right. But
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does that with everything. We were playing tennis the other day, and he said to me, I think the problem with your backhand is this, or your forehand is that. He's not a tennis instructor, but he likes to work things out. He'll sort of reverse engineer things and figure things out.
Yeah. Beautiful. Very
so
nice.
You're a practitioner now, are you?
I'm becoming one. I'm what they call a facilitator, and one of the things that I'm doing, and I'm liking it a lot, is to do the podcast. I think it's making a difference, and I think it's going to make a big difference. So thank you, because Emmanuel is going to be part of one of the episodes about...
The idea of working on teenagers is such a brilliant idea. I mean, I work as a teacher, I call myself a study skills counselor. So I help teenagers mostly who are having problems in their work and they don't know why, like they can't concentrate, or they get panicky, or they don't know how to plan an essay or how to prepare for exams. So it could be a technical problem, but often it's an emotional problem.
Oh yeah.
And I notice the breathing now, which I never used to notice before, but I notice the breathing and the sighing and the panicky, the chest breathing, the breath up there, the panic. Notice all of that.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
So
Totally.
it does.
That's one of the things that is a clear, absolutely evident benefit of Buteyko. It helps with concentration and calm those nerves down to study. I mean, I started as an adult, but I like reading and I like to process information, and that's the first. At the end of the day, you're kind of tired. It's 8 p.m. Your brain is like kind of foggy already. You do the practice, and you're like, bing! It's like a light goes on, and you can continue. So that was
doing Buteyko and your nerves went down. Do you remember you were nervous about something? It was years ago.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, I can sometimes just do like a 60, sometimes even 40-second breath hold, and then I feel a lot better because of it.
Yeah, and you can do a multitude of those. Well, say you have a 2-hour study session, and you keep doing them every 3 minutes or 4 minutes. You do those easy pauses, and they just keep you going. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Well, it's great to meet you, and thanks for your outburst many years ago.
I'm surprised and happy about that. It made a difference. Absolutely.
All the best.
Okay.
Bye.
All the best. Bye bye. Okay, Emmanuel. Well, as I said, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I'll see you around. Okay.
Yes. Looking forward to the podcast.
Yes. All the best. I'll send it to you.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. You take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. I hope you found it interesting. We'll catch up with Emmanuel soon. Maybe he can tell us more about his progress. And if you want to learn more about the Buteyko method, visit our website in learnbuteykoonline.net. And there you can have links for a lot of testimonials. You can also visit the YouTube channel, Learn Buteyko Online. And you can also join free webinars to find out more about the Buteyko method. The Buteyko method is also taught in other languages like Spanish and Greek and Hebrew and more. And I hope you join us in the next episode of this wonderful Learn Buteyko podcast. Thank you very much.